We are all familiar with the glory of Rome, ever since the days of Augustus and the peak of expansion under Trajan. But let's leave these peaks and descend into the crater that was the 3rd century crisis. The office of emperor was stable for the most part, but it had its ups and downs. One of these downs would be that there wasn't a codified succession, at all. No primogeniture, no nothing. And the crisis had this as its pretext, but definitely not the sole cause. Our story takes hold with the reign of Severus Alexandrus. A young and able man, he had set out to deal with a major thorn of the empire, Germania. Under his mother's advice, he planned to fix the political side of the army and also planned to bribe the barbarians into disbanding. Suddenly, the Praetorians grind their teeth in anger. The swords slip out. One of them blocks to protect the emperor, but a second passes too late. Both the emperor and his mother have their lives cut short. The army picks out a man, and they all yell in unison to declare him. This fellow be Maximinus Thrax. Sure, his reign lasted quite short for 3 years, but the Senate was always up to depose these kinds of guys. Quite shortly, the year of 6 emperors took place. Just to prepare you all, there are about 26 legitimate emperors in the 3rd century crisis, and several more illegitimate, but let's talk about those between Thrax and Aurelian. So let's get ready for rapid fire round. Gordian again, Pupenius to Balbinus, Gordian thrice, Philip and another Arab, Dacius and Hostilian, Trebonianus and Volasianus, Aemilian Soli, Valerian the Gaul Guzzler, and after Gallienus, Claudius the Goth, and Quintilius to the Prelude. After these emperors ran their course, the man himself stepped foot into the Senate and rightfully accepted the crown. Listen, I can just imagine this man rocking sunglasses and making the Senate jealous with his cool. Aurelian was actually good aside from the historical glaze. He did immediately enact reforms, fight barbarians, got to rebuild the walls of Rome, and set his eyes on the major issue, debasing. Debasing is basically using less precious metal in coins, which caused inflation in prices, and this problem took root in this crisis. It was decreed that coins must be at the very least 5% silver, which made them 20 times worth less than pre-crisis. Then Aurelian uncovered a scandal where state officials were embezzling funds at the mints and debasing galore. But then this led to unrest from both the Senate and the populace, because Aurelian arrested the man in charge of the mint, and a grain shortage tied to the silver population even closer. Aurelian then in orderly fashion called the army and suppressed the unrest. He had other things to deal with, and a Gothic invasion of the Balkans was at the top of his list. And we see Aurelian casually picking up titles for his deeds. The war in the Balkans led to him earning the title of Gothicus Maximus. He invaded the cutaway region of the Palmyrian Empire and dealt with his ruler Queen Zenobia after a great blockade caused by her. Here was awarded the title Restitutor Orientis. In the Gallic Empire, another region was subdued by Aurelian. Here he took his final title, Restitutor Orbis. He then held a triumph to celebrate his deeds, but this wouldn't last. In a military campaign, Aurelian goes to a secluded spot to take a leak, but behind him his officers slip their gladiuses silently, and then they King Saul style him by murdering him outright. One thing to mention is that Aurelian worshipped Sol Invictus, who would be a patron deity of his successors, mainly Diocletian. After that, a string of emperor dying comes, and Diocletian enters the frame. Hailing from Dalmatia, he sets on his style like Aurelian and attempts to fix the empire, but differently this time. He plans 3 priorities for reform: to secure the far-flung regions of the empire, to stop inflation and low tax yields, to put an end to the succession crisis. Diocletian recognized that he could be assassinated, so he chose one of his generals, Maximian, to the office of subordinate co-emperor. And to keep the reign stable, he then set up the most important part of the reign, the Tetrarchy. Diocletian was always on the move. He might have never set foot on Rome. His contents fight against enemies such as the Sassanids, Sarmatians, threats of Germanic incursions, and local uprisings in Gaul and Britannia. Diocletian's secret sauce was his administrative and tax reforms. He often had census takers and tax assessors scout the lands, check the administration, and keep prices stable to prevent uprisings. Most of the wealth would be pooled by army generals as opposed to aristocrats. Diocletian also demoted the praetorians to Rome's garrison, split provinces from 50 to 100, and set up divisions called dioceses led by vicars. He also instituted a new rank of the military called the dux. In the Tetrarchy, Maximian took his son-in-law Constantius as a Caesar, and Diocletian did the same with Galerius. The territorial handlings were evenly distributed, but their power was still one. They drove a Persian army away and even struck back. But a small sect had been taken root, and it would prove to be the nail in the coffin here. Antioch, 302. Diocletian and Galerian make libations to their gods and pray for a successful campaign. Then a man stepped out. "Heretics, you are mistaken, for there is one true God, our Lord." This man was Romanus, a deacon of the small sect. Galerian yells, "Execute him!" Diocletian steps in and only tells him to pry his tongue off. Their soldiers agree, but then they beat and strangle him to death. Later, he'd be a symbol of how that faith would spread through martyrdom and sympathy to the people. As polytheists, the Romans didn't care what pantheon others worshipped, as long as it was compatible with the state. Even Judaism got a pass due to its ancient history and localized presence in Judea. But the new sect was Christianity, who hated war, had their figure executed by the Romans, and refused libations. To be more honest, the persecution was first local, with only village violence being of little concern to the state. But Diocletian, seeing himself as a restorer, decided to make state-sponsored crackdowns, and mostly burn books, order libations on pain of death, etc. Many of the Christians would do fake libations, or hand over less important texts, but in fact, the persecution was not empire-wide. The West had milder edicts, and the Tetrarchy proved to permanently make the invisible East-West divide, which will only be fully visible after Honorius and Arcadius. Then Diocletian retired. He went to a small farm in Dalmatia, tending to some cabbage. However, the situation was bad, with other Tetrarchy members leaving their adult sons in charge, and even Maximian came out of retirement and tried to restore rule. 3 years after his retirement, Diocletian met to help, but eventually left the empire to his own devices. That the ensuing civil war would be won by Constantius' son Constantine, yes, that Constantine, and he continued to the reforms and founded Constantinople. His son and eventual successors preferred the new religion. And so, the story closes in this crisis. This was shorter, but I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye!